All right, welcome back to our lectures about synaptic transmission. In this video, we're going to talk about the postsynaptic response, and we're going to be addressing this question: how does a postsynaptic neuron respond to neurotransmitter release? Okay, so just to set the stage, to remind you, we've seen how we get neurotransmitter being released from the presynaptic cell, and we're going to be passing that signal on to the postsynaptic cell. We know that neurotransmitter has been released into the synaptic cleft. We know that that neurotransmitter binds to a receptor on the postsynaptic cell, but we haven't yet talked about what happens in the postsynaptic cell in response to that binding. So that's what we're going to be addressing in this video, okay? There are basically two main categories of responses that we can get in the postsynaptic cell in response to neurotransmitter release. The first is like sort of a fast response, okay? And what happens in this kind of scenario is the neurotransmitter binds to a receptor that is also an ion channel, okay? So basically it's a chemically gated ion channel, or a neurotransmitter gated ion channel. Once the neurotransmitter binds to that receptor channel, okay, that ion channel can open. Once the ion channel opens, what is going to happen in response to that? And then what is the effect of that going to be? Think about that for a second. Okay, so hopefully you were able to come up with the answer. Once we open up an ion channel, that's going to allow ions to flow through from one side of the cell to another, right? Either into the cell or out of the cell, depending on what ions the channel is for, okay? As a result of that, we're going to end up changing the membrane potential, okay? So that's the fast response. Let's talk about the slow response, okay? So in a slow response to neurotransmitter release, what's going to happen is the neurotransmitter is going to bind to a receptor on the postsynaptic cell, just like we have already seen. But that receptor will be linked to a signal transduction cascade. Now, we can get, a variety of effects from that signal transduction cascade, but the main effect that I want to focus on here is that that signal transduction cascade can lead to opening or closing of ion channels, okay? So what is going to happen when we either open or close those ion channels? Take a second to think about that. Okay, so hopefully you were able to determine the answer is the same as before. Once we either open or close ion channels, that's either going to allow or disallow certain ions from crossing the membrane. And again, that's going to affect the membrane potential, okay? Really quickly, I want to mention this slow response is not that slow. So basically, fast response is going to happen like within a few milliseconds. Slow response will be more like a couple hundred milliseconds. Okay, so it's still pretty fast.